If I were to ask you, how has your morning been so far? How would you answer? Would you say, fine, and change the subject, even if you'd had a shocking morning? Sometimes you might have even said fine out of habit before even realising or thinking about it. And it can be hard to know how to steer the conversation back, especially when you might really need the chat. So why is that question so difficult to answer sometimes, not just for adults, but for kids as well? And how can we make it easier to have more open conversations, not only for our sake, but for the sake of our loved ones as well? Psychology consultant and author Dr. Jo Lukens is with me to tell you more. Good morning.
Good morning, Susan.
Good morning. How are you, Dr. Jo?
I'm very well, thank you. And I would love to give you a more extended reply, but that's possibly not what the listeners want to hear this morning. So.
No, but Dr. Jo, how important is it to have those honest conversations with a friend or a loved one about how you're really doing?
We do know it's really important for most people to be able to have someone to talk to. Certainly, I think one of my favourite quotes from when I was first studying at uni was by a fellow called Moshe Lang, who said that to be heard is profoundly healing. So we do know that having other people in our lives is really important, and having someone that we feel connected to, and whether that be, like you said, a friend, a family member, whether it be someone professional that you go and see, but being able to share your story is very helpful for the majority of people.
It is something of nearly a scripted back and forward. How are you doing? Fine, thanks. How are you doing? Fine, thanks. Why are those responses so ingrained in us?
I think you mentioned some of it at the start of the story. Sometimes it is habit, sometimes it is you're at the supermarket and maybe the person behind the till doesn't really want to know how you are, but it's part of their training to ask you. So we do know that we have those elements there, but we do know that sometimes we might hold back, and maybe that's because we're worried about what other people might think about what our answer is. We might feel a bit hesitant. We may not feel so safe in the conversation. So there's a whole range of elements. And for some of us, sometimes it's about not quite being able to find the words. So there could be a range of reasons why people might hold back on sharing that particular information.
It can be just as daunting to ask sometimes, trying to get somebody to open up, as it can be to give an open, honest answer, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we can feel a little bit uncomfortable in the question, whether we are the ones asking or whether we are the ones being asked. And sometimes what I've said to people, if you know that feeling that you have when you feel like there's something up but the person isn't sharing it, I might actually say something to them like, I've just noticed lately that I've seen some changes in you around this and this, or I noticed that you hesitated just then as you were answering me. Is there something that you want to talk about? So just being present and observing that, and then giving people the option to speak with you further if that's what they're comfortable to do.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the time and place too, and who else might be listening. Hearing from psychology consultant Dr. Jo Lukens, we're talking about how you have that conversation to check in on how people are doing. It has been a tough few months in regional Queensland, right across the state really, with different events and things going on, whether that be weather events or something else. So asking that question can be important. Sometimes you might ask somebody as they're walking in the door how their day was, and you might receive that one-word response back. How important is that timing when it comes to the conversations, though?
Oh, the timing really is crucial. And I guess if we all think about it, when you've walked through the door, you've been through your day, maybe you haven't even put your bag down or whatever, and then someone's coming and asking you questions straight away, you probably just need that little bit of time and a little bit of space to take your shoes off and catch your breath, those sorts of things. So I think being aware of the timing, and sometimes that can be part of the conversation. You know, I might say, Susan, is this a good time to talk to you? And then trust that you're going to give me the answer on that. But I think being mindful and aware, that's one of the ones that I know I always gravitated to when I was picking my children up from school. Maybe they've had a day and they don't need questions thrown at them the second that they sit in the car.
Yeah, they don't want to feel interrogated straight away.
Exactly.
What about if someone is listening, is on the receiving end of these open and encouraging questions, but they're still a bit unsure or uneasy in sharing their thoughts? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I think if someone is uncomfortable with it, where I would start is I would think about, I wonder why it is that I am uncomfortable. And it might be that maybe it's not the right person asking me the question. For those conversations, you always want to feel like you're in a safe environment, because when you're in a safe environment, you trust the environment, you can always open up. It's easier to open up. than it is in an environment where you don't feel so safe. So maybe this just isn't the right time, or this isn't the right person to talk to. The nice thing is that if you can find someone who's maybe even a little bit more neutral, who's not so vested in you, can be a helpful thing. And I know for me, having worked in the psychology area, a lot of the times conversations I used to have was because people said, look, I just need someone who's not vested in me so that I can just share what I'm feeling and do that in almost like a neutral kind of environment, if you like. Because even when it's someone who loves you and cares about you, they might try to influence you in a way that's maybe not what you need.
Yeah, and sometimes you might have noticed a change in somebody, but they might not be willing to open up to you. But you might even say to somebody who you know is closer, "Hey, I've noticed that such and such is not their normal selves. Maybe it's worth a check-in to let them know that, just so that they know that there is somebody there that's noticing and able to check in with them and to have that conversation if they need it as well."
Yeah, I would agree. I think that sense of connection is so important for so many of us, and so that someone notices that somebody cares, even if that person isn't the right one to travel down the path with them, like you said, checking in with someone else that they know just to see how it's going on. And I think the other thing to be aware of too is that sometimes we have these quiet moments, and it might not be because there's something going on. It might be because I'm just tired from the weekend or feeling a bit run down. So it's not always going to be that there's something sitting behind the surface, but in the event that it is, it's always great if we can frame the questions up in a helpful way.
Psychology consultant and author Dr. Jo Lukins, thanks so much for your time.
Always good to chat, Susan.
Thank you. You are on ABC Queensland. Thanks for being with me. It's nearly news time.